Welcome, ladies, non-binaries, and gentlemen, to my entry to Classy Wales Alternate History video contest. And because I won the previous contest with alternate history, I really had to outdo myself as the defending champion. So I wrote The Electric Metra. This book is, of note, a hardcover book. And I put a lot of effort into it. So, let's read out my book out loud. How about that? Introduction. Everybody loves the Chicago Metra, ladies, non-binaries, and gentlemen, but that greatness is carried single-handedly by the Electric Line, which is objectively Chicago's best commuter rail line because it's the only one with high platforms like a civilized country. Everybody also likes alternate history, so this book shall answer the most riveting question. Not anything boring like the same old assassinations or wars going the other way, but what if the Illinois Central Railroad had electrified just a few years earlier than it did? The butterfly effects of that would be far-reaching. All hereafter is told from the in-universe perspective of the alternate timeline. Chapter 1. The Mainline of Mid-America. 200 years of American history have been carried from sea to shining sea upon the great ribbons of steel that bind the whole country together, and the railroad network's hub of the universe is Chicago. Every rail passenger knows they have arrived in the city in a garden when they see that beacon of light and of hope, the highway bridge over the Calumet River, with the city's motto glowing upon it, "Chicago makes the world go." Here is the history of how America's second-largest city created its electric Metra, an inspiration for many other rail networks in the world. The first Chicago railroad to electrify was the Illinois Central, pursuant to a city ordinance passed in 1919. For a few decades, around the turn of the century, the city passed many ordinances requiring railroads to grade separate various level crossings, and they almost always obliged. For in those days, the railroads had little competition and could afford to do nice things to improve infrastructure. As the Illinois Central Main Line was the busiest line in the city, it was ordered not only to grade separate through the south side, but also electrify it to reduce pollution. Thus, the old steam engines and coaches were replaced with electric multiple units, and upon the electrification project's completion on December 31st of the decade, the line's travel time went down by almost 15% and the ridership tripled.
The next train to arrive on platform 1 does not stop at this place.
A local newspaper of the time boasted, "Everybody knows the weather will always be impossible to predict, but as the new decade opens, Chicago's south side can look forward to cleaner air forevermore, free of the soot and smoke from the steam engines that are now a thing of the obsolete past. The innovation of technology has progressed more in the past 50 years than it likely ever will for any half-century period in the future. Surely, within 30 years' time, everything will be powered by the same electricity that the Illinois Central Railroad has now harnessed on its Chicago Main Line. If the recent increase in speed brought by the change from steam to electric is any indication, there may soon be little need for quite so many of the trolley cars and elevated cars, when passengers could conveniently whiz about the city at speeds over 100 miles per hour, for the IC is without a doubt the world's most modern railroad." Some railroad lines in New York and Philadelphia had already begun the process of electrification, but with Chicago joining in, the floodgates opened and it was an electrification mania, much like the railroad building mania of the previous century. As the 1920s progressed, more railroads saw the potential benefits of electrification and made that newspaper's bold prediction a reality all over the country. Electric trains were faster and much more efficient than steam trains, but nobody could agree what power standard to use. The IC's choice of 1500-volt direct current was sufficient for suburban passenger trains, but it had its drawbacks made apparent when deployed at a large scale, for heavy freight trains had to be driven very carefully under the low voltages, or else its high current draw would overload the substation breakers. Fortunately, in 1925, the Pennsylvania Railroad built Chicago Union Station and wired it up with 25 Hz alternating current, making the decision for the others who used the station, the Burlington Quincy and the Milwaukee Road. The latter of those actually already used 3,000 volt direct current on 2 discontinuous sections out west, but had not yet gotten around to bridging the gap. With more roads adopting the Penzie's 25 Hz, it became most of the country's de facto standard for no real reason. Another reason the PRR earned the nickname of Standard Railroad of the World was the adoption of 48-inch high platforms for quicker boarding, one of the few things it and its arch-rival the New York Central agreed on. With so many fast commuter trains in Chicago, the elevated rapid transit had only 2 advantages, and even those complemented rather than competed with the commuter rail. It had its stops closer together, and its tighter turning radii could fit down narrow streets, so a name was coined to properly differentiate the services, light rail, or L for short, because it is lighter than mainline rail. Light rail networks can now be found in most major cities in America. The 1920s were a time of optimism, and morale was improving as if nothing could ever go wrong. By the end of the decade, almost 3,000 miles of track had been electrified in the United States, mostly being urban commuter lines and mountain tunnels. It was not yet possible to go from coast to coast, or coast to Chicago, or even just New York to Washington on electric power alone, but the ambitious plans were already being drawn. Chapter 2. Times Get Rough. Sadly, the 1920s could not go on forever, and in 1929 they ended abruptly when the economy crashed. President Roosevelt soon created the New Deal program of infrastructure grants to create jobs and get the economy running again. So many more rail lines were wired up using those federal funds, motivated mostly by the reduced operational costs of electric trains. If the official definition of high-speed rail is a train that goes over 125 miles per hour and has a streamlined front, then it was also about that time they became fashionable, and a fragmented network of upgraded main lines grew for premium service. High-speed rail used custom train sets designed to look fancy, and they were advertised as being fast compared to the standard service, but they only actually reached their top speeds on straight segments over the flat ground, and most of the time savings came from how they ran the non-stop runs. Some of the most beloved early high-speed train sets included the Burlington Zephyr and the Milwaukee Hiawatha, both of which could zoom across the Midwest plains over 160 miles per hour. Along with the Southern Pacific Daylight on the West Coast from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and the Pennsylvania Railroad's Metra liner on the East Coast from Washington to New York, these were the progenitors of America's world-class high-speed rail network. Mayor Kelly also secured New Deal grants to put 2 subways under State and Dearborn streets in downtown Chicago, with the potential goal to reconfigure the light rail network and even eliminate the elevated loop. But that was never finished. They were somewhat delayed by the onset of the war, and opened in 43 and 51 respectively. The wartime rationing of the 1940s brought public transportation to its highest ridership ever, and women were hired as conductors to replace the men. Millions rode the train during the war, but everyone knew that would be temporary. It is common knowledge that the automobile industry subsequently attempted to destroy America's public transportation, and President Eisenhower infamously let it happen by passing the poorly thought-out Interstate Highway Act, which gave near-limitless money to highway construction. In turn, the roads soon filled up with near-limitless traffic, but few could come up with a solution other than widening the road. Yes?
What are you doing?
I wrote a book for a contest.
Are you gonna win?
Well, I won the previous contest, so I really got to outdo myself with this one.
What's the contest?
Alternate history fiction.
Can we add to it so then you get a better mark? We'll do background noises. Train noises.
Clap along to the song that they're in.
Okay, what's the song?
You'll see.
Okay.
In 1958, the Interstate Commerce Commission made it worse by allowing railroads to discontinue commuter services, and the Postal Service started cutting mail contracts, which were the main source of money to subsidize passenger trains. Meanwhile, the New Haven Railroad went bankrupt entirely, and the state of Connecticut bought all the assets of the company and renamed it Conrail. The ensuing interstate commerce dispute resulted in the appointment of the advisory Prime Minister of New England. by the region's governors to coordinate regional affairs such as the railroad, industrial policy, and water management. Not yet. The song's not yet. The song is in this chapter.
This is a rap song. Sorry.
Chapter 3, Lyndon's Great Society. Crucially, the 1956 Highway Act included a last-minute provision that it was to be re-evaluated in 10 years' time. And as the data from the first highways came in from all over the country, it was soon discovered that they had the opposite effect from intended, only making traffic worse. Thus, by the time 1966 rolled around, commuters were tired of traffic, and the idea of urban highways was written off. Driving would be for sparsely populated suburbs only. It is estimated that had the rest of the proposed highways been finished, Chicago would have been left with about half its current population. A city whose sole means of transportation is highways is like a dinner that's a piece of steak and nothing else. 1 or 2 highways may be delicious, but you need a functioning rail network too, with the proverb-like words uttered by Chicago's mayor as he vetoed the next highway expansion. Instead of quite so many highways with nothing else, President Johnson followed up the Urban Mass Transportation Act and the High-Speed Ground Transportation Act, and he rolled all his policies into the Metropolitan Rail Act, which coined the portmanteau Metra as the American version of the German S-Bahn or the Australian Suburban Rail. Though Johnson did not run for a second re-election due to his ailing health, he did more for transportation than any other president. And the foreign policy he swept under the rug in Southeast Asia was only found out by the next president. His final contribution was the American Electrified Subsidized Intercity Rail, commonly abbreviated ASIR. Many nowadays may criticize how ASIR pays private railroad companies to operate passenger services on behalf of the government, but... Hold on, let me turn the page.
Okay, we turn the page.
Recreating the subsidy effect of the mail contracts was the closest Johnson could get to a railroad nationalization without his opponents accusing him of the dreaded socialism. Additionally, the role of conductors was reduced as Chicago's Metra invented the world's first automated ticket machines and fare gates, a technological marvel of the 60s. Unfortunately, some passengers spread a costly rumor that the ticket machines were casket-like enclosures with the old station clerks inside. And so, for a few weeks after their introduction, many machines were damaged by passengers trying to insert thin slices of cheese into the ticket slots to feed the men trapped within. The misinformation swiftly died down once a ticket machine was opened up and put on display in the Museum of Science and Industry. After the electrification on the IC was changed to alternating current, the concourse of Union Station was demolished in 1969 to make way for a skyscraper, and the tracks were reconfigured to enable through running. Over the next decade, a big rectangular loop would form in downtown Chicago, uncreatively named the MOOP, short for Metro Loop.
That's not very creative, is it?
Type shit for real.
The western side of this rectangle is Union Station, the eastern side is the Randolph Terminal, the southern side is the St. Charles Airline, and the northern side is the rail yard underneath the Merchandise Mart. 4 railroad terminals were closed and 1 other was converted to a through station. To raise awareness of all the big service changes the MOOP would bring, some musically inclined employees at the Illinois Central's PR department wrote a song in 1970 to be played on the radio and distributed at record stores in the region.
Crazy, what's the song?
The electric Metra lets you get around. Major changes to the trains all over town, coming soon. All Chicago train commuters need to know the changes to the way the trains will operate. When it's done, they'll run straight on through the city center to the other side. The electric Metra lets you get around. Major changes to the trains all over town, coming soon. Railroad terminals are plenty, more than one is far too many. That's why soon they'll just be Union, with the Metro loop to through run branches with improvement system-wide. The electric Metro lets you get around. Major changes to the trains all over town, coming soon. In each morning, out each evening, Metro offers far more freedom. That's why all the region gets connections. Trains all day in both directions. Metropolitan electrified. The electric Metro lets you get around. Major changes to the trains all over town, coming soon. For a time, the highways new would seem like transportation's future, but more lanes will not solve traffic. Trains are needed to bypass it. Leave your car, take Metra for a ride. The electric Metra lets you get around. Major changes to the trains all over town. Coming soon. Yeah, get around on the train. Take the train, Chicago.
Take the train, Chicago.
The electric Metra lets you get around. Major changes to the trains all over town. Coming soon.
That's it.
Yeah, I cannot replicate the high notes of the original recording from 1970.
So good. So good. Next page.
Next page. So excited.
Though the electric Metra song was successfully accomplished its goal as a catchy public service announcement for its target demographic, and it is still played at Chicago baseball games from time to time, it somehow also found mainstream popularity overseas thanks to a Japanese radio DJ in the 80s. It was only recently that an internet blogger uncovered the story and interviewed him. Question: Electric Metra was only meant to teach Chicago commuter rail passengers about some service changes. So how exactly did the song end up on the charts in Japan a decade later? Answer: When I worked at a punk radio station in Kyoto, I went on a trip to America for a project to browse record shops for rare groove, obscure foreign hits. In one of the states, they were just giving Electric Metra out, so I took it. Question: Did you know what the song was about when you first heard it? Answer: No, I thought I'd overcome the language barrier enough, but I'm no densha otaku, so all the references went over my head. I assumed it was about someone who got around. Question: I think that was the Beach Boys. Anyways, did anyone ask you what the song was about? Or did listeners of your radio station understand it when you played it? Answer: Did it matter? Good music is universally appealing, even if the words mean nothing to the listener. You Americans love upbeat Japanese songs about sadness, while Japanese love your upbeat American song about railroads. Not so different. Question: Do you believe the tune ended up arranged in a soundtrack on the Super Famicom, and that you were the one responsible? Answer: Yes, I'd believe that. Come to think of it, Electric Metra actually wouldn't even be the only time a pop song I cued on my radio station inspired the tune of a video game song. Chicago was by no means the only American city to make a Metra with Great Society funds, especially after the Great Gas Shortage forced the country to reduce its dependence on foreign oil. Other well-known Metras include the California Caltrain, dedicated with the Transbay Tunnel in 1974, the Washington Commuter Rail with the Longer Bridge in 1976, and the Philadelphia Regional Rail with the Center City Commuter Connection in 1984. One city that still lacks a proper Metra is New York, the largest city in the world. The smallest city with a big multi-line Metra is the Providence Railroad, the easternmost rail system in the U.S. Chapter 4: Modern Operations. Despite the claim in the old song that it was entirely electric, several branch lines were actually not yet electrified due to having relatively low service levels on both passenger and freight. The last non-electrified commuter trains in Chicago ran in the late 1980s on a practical through running between the Orland Park branch and the vacation town of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where the ridership always has skewed heavily towards reverse commute travelers in the summer months. In the late 1990s, the fare collection system was totally overhauled. The old magnetic tickets on the Metra and the steel tokens on the light rail and buses were replaced with a stored value fare card that could be swiped on any transit mode in Greater Chicago with integrated transfers, based on the same technology as the New York Met card. It was called the Chicago card, pronounced with the emphasis on the go in the middle. The Chicago card was replaced in the early 2020s with a fare card named in an online contest. And the winning name was suggested by a middle school student in Cicero, the Cow Card, in allusion to that infamous 19th century arsonist. The Cow Card is versatile, for not only can it be tapped on and off at any station or bus, but it can also be used to purchase souvenirs at the Transit Museum gift shop, unlock most station bathrooms, and dispense hot drinks from the coffee machines aboard Metra trains. Passengers are also able to use contactless payment in a pinch, but it can't directly load day passes such as the incredibly powerful $10 weekend pass. The Metra's distinctive old double-decker Bud railcars that creak and sway as they roll down the track are still a beloved icon of the Chicago region, even as they are gradually being replaced by a new, more reliable railcar fleet with amenities such as wider accessible doors, less comfortable seats, and announcements that actually work. Because Chicago has always been the largest railroad hub on the continent, the main lines its Metra uses are so overbuilt that on most branches, the ultimate theoretical limitation on service frequency is not the sheer number of branches converging on downtown, but rather the silly reason of how the train scheduling system interacts with the passenger wayfinding. Metra trains in Chicago are assigned numbers in the timetable such that a single service pattern only allows a maximum of 50 round trips a day, or else it would need to be assigned a larger range. One solution that has been proposed is pairing the through runnings and signing the train for its ultimate destination, but the logic behind the current unpaired through running, in which an inbound train is only signed to Chicago until it reaches the MOOP, is to insulate other branches from the effects of cascading delays on one branch. The most recent addition to the Metra network, after decades of clamoring for a crosstown connection, was the Belt Railway from Evanston to South Chicago via Midway Airport, with another branch connecting Midway and O'Hare. However, the southern half of the Belt Railway is also an extremely busy freight line, and train spotters enjoy it because it has even more freight trains than passenger trains. Now, the missing link being clamored for is a station on the southern edge of the MOOP near 16th Street to mirror the one at Merchandise Mart. Conclusion. As the old song goes, the Metra lets you get around. Everybody loves the Chicago Metra, ladies non-binaries and gentlemen, and throughout history it has contributed a key role in what makes it Chicago into America's second largest, but according to a biased source, her greatest city. Perhaps someday New York can figure out how to make through running too, and that would make it the greatest urban rail system in the world. But until then, the greatest urban rail system in the world is the one in Chicago. Many other places in the world were made better off by the design of Chicago's electric Metra, even including things as far away as Japan's reliable 160-mile-per-hour bullet trains. Thank you for following along to this story. Well, that was interrupted a few times, but it's the longest thing I've ever read out loud. Once again, I am the world's most confident public speaker. So, please be sure to absolutely smash the like, subscribe, and bell buttons. And thank you for watching.